your first bleed. I mean, when I had it, I thought I was pregnant.
What?
And I never even had a boyfriend.
So you thought you thought you
I don't know, man. I heard so many Virgin Mary stories. Who knows what happened to me as
you
well.
thought Welcome to episode 8 of the Desi Outsiders podcast. I'm Ankita.
And I'm Meenal.
And this week we talk about a slightly taboo topic in our country, periods. We're going to be addressing the level of awareness about periods in India, not only among young girls, but also among young boys and grown men. That's right, Meenal and I share our stories and discuss how much we personally knew about menstruation as teenagers, but we also bring a very special guest today to discuss the same. Today, my husband Shane will be joining us briefly to talk about periods, and how exciting is that?
You sound very excited, Ankita. I'm pretty scared you're going to jump out of your screen and into mine. If you're a guy who's still listening to this episode and you haven't switched off, either you're very interested in raising awareness about periods, or you might just be in your 20s and still have no idea why and what periods actually are. Either way, you have nothing to worry about because you're going to have a male perspective coming in very soon.
So before we jump right into the episode, Meenal, I think we should get that one of us who's almost a doctor to explain in simple terms what a period actually is. So why don't you do the honors and tell us what exactly goes on in our bodies when we get our period?
Well, I hope that most of you who are tuning in at least have the basic idea and concepts of what period actually is. But I will just go through it and explain just in case you are unsure or you need some sort of confirmation about it. So in order for reproduction to happen, a sperm fertilizes an egg, and this grows on for 9 months in the womb. And the womb is also known as the uterus in medical terms. So in order for the fetus to grow comfortably and receive all the nutrition and oxygen it needs to develop into a healthy baby, it's the lining of the uterus that must be maintained. Now, your body won't maintain a lining if there's no fetus. So your body has another 101 things to worry about. So it's got better things to do than to wait for a fertilized egg to land in your uterus. So every month, as eggs from your ovaries are traveling to your uterus, your body is expecting it to be fertilized by a sperm, ready for reproduction. But if it isn't fertilized, the lining of the womb disintegrates and the eggs die, and that's your period. So all these changes are constantly happening in your body every single month. And there are a lot of hormones which are involved here. And it can only work if you have the correct balance of all these hormones. And because all these hormones are going up and down, it can make a lady go a bit cray-cray. And this is what we call mood swings. So now you know why we have mood swings and why we have our periods.
I'm the queen. I'm the queen of PMS and mood swings. I don't have any other symptoms or any other problems. I don't get stomach cramps. I don't have most of these.
You don't get any stomach cramps at all?
I don't get stomach cramps. But
you must feel bloated at least, right?
No, I don't feel bloated. I don't get stomach. I'm in a constant bad mood, and that doesn't necessarily happen during the period. It happens a week in advance, and then it's an ongoing on and off thing. And when I get my Shane is giving me
I can see Shane.
Yeah, Shane is giving me dirty looks right now because I do have serious mood swings. I start getting it at least 1 or 2 weeks in advance, and then it's an on and off process. And during my period, sometimes I don't get mood swings, but sometimes it can be bad. But my worst PMS happens at least a week in advance. That's all. That's the only symptom I have. But mood swings, man.
Well, I think that I know that my body is going through these changes. So if I feel sad or if I feel that I'm getting agitated, I just tell myself, Meal, it's your period. Just get on with it.
Yeah.
But I feel bloated, constantly bloated. I can not eat the whole day, and it feels like I'm carrying 5 babies in my abdomen. Like,
No. I don't have that problem at all. I can actually. I do have cravings. So sometimes I have weird spicy sweet cravings, which is basically we order Indian, and there's this mango chicken curry which is not spicy at all, but it's kind of sweet, but at the same time it's a chicken curry and it's Indian. That's the only craving I ever get during my period. But apart, my main symptom is the mood swing. I have no
And
idea what's going on.
Do you write about this on Ankita.inc?
Of course I do. It's my
Yeah?
period. Why wouldn't I? Why shouldn't I tell the whole world about my period and my mood swings? Yeah. Actually, I do. No, sometimes I don't necessarily mention that I'm on my period, but I have these really depressing long rants about how upset I am, and I go back and I read them, and I know that this was definitely written around the time when I was PMSing.
You know, Ankita, I've always felt that it's not fair that we have to go through this.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones who have to go through periods, and we're the ones who have to go through the pain of giving birth. So
Yeah.
I think when I was younger, I discussed it with a friend, and we thought that every guy should get kicked in the nuts once a month at least. Do you think that's fair? I think that's pretty fair.
Well, Shane does metaphorically get kicked in the nuts every month when I go through my mood swings.
No, but
because
he needs to feel that real pain, man. He needs to feel that, yeah.
I don't know how fair that is, considering how I don't go through that pain. Mine is emotional, so he gets the emotional torture
fair
bit as
enough.
well.
You know what? I'll opt for the physical pain.
You're not allowed to talk now. Shh. You get your chance. Shh. Okay, now, so Meenal, you just explained what the period is, but I know that you've come to this session fully equipped with some numbers that maybe a lot of our listeners aren't aware of. Personally, when I heard these numbers and facts and figures for the first time, they just blew my mind. So I think sharing these numbers should be a good place to start this episode.
Yeah, I think these numbers are very important because we always feel that the taboo of periods is only just a rural phenomena, when in fact it still lies very deep in most parts of India, whether you are in the educated tier or whether you're in a village. And you'll be very surprised to hear that 3 out of 10 girls in India are not aware that the periods have come in. So 3 out of 10 girls are bleeding, and
Right.
they have no idea what's actually happening to their body.
Oh.
And in some parts of India, some parts of rural India, it can be as high as 9 out of 10 people who are not aware that their periods have settled in. So
Yeah.
you can imagine that if you have these girls who are bleeding,
Yeah.
and nobody's told them what it actually is, that they can think that, well, either they have cancer or they're dying, or, I mean, it's a shock to your system to see your first bleed. I mean,
Yeah.
when I had it, I thought I was pregnant.
What?
And I never even had a boyfriend.
So you thought you thought you
I don't know, man. I heard so many Virgin Mary stories. Who knows what happened to
my
me
God.
as well.
You thought you got pregnant because you got your period.
Yeah, well, Ankita, I didn't know about it.
It's the exact opposite. You should be-
Exactly.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
wow. No,
it's quite
but
funny.
speaking
Yeah.
of how girls sometimes think that they're dying or that they have cancer, I know one of my friends was telling me about her neighbor. Okay, this was the time when we were all in school and we were all in the 5th or 6th grade, and there would be that one girl in class who got her period, and everyone would just get excited about it and sit around and talk about it. So this classmate of mine told me about her neighbor who got her period when she was maybe 11 or 12 years old, and she had no idea what this was. So what this girl did was she would bleed into her panties, and she would clean them, and she would hide them from her mother because she thought that there was something seriously wrong with her, that she had a disease and she was going to die. So she would constantly keep changing her panties, and she would constantly keep cleaning them. For I think the first 2 times that she had her periods, she didn't know what was happening. She didn't understand it. She thought it was a disease, and she thought she had to hide it from her mother. But worst of all, she never used a sanitary napkin. She was constantly bleeding into her panty. She would go wash it, she would change, she would wear another panty, and that was it.
And how long did she do this for?
I think the first 2 periods, and then her mother discovered
Oh,
a
thank
stained
God.
panty and said, why didn't
Yeah.
you tell me about it? And that's how this kid found out that, oh my God, I'm not dying.
Well, Ankita, we already know that just going through your period is already uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Is already uncomfortable as it is. So imagine having to go through your period without any absorbative material.
Yeah.
And having to hide it from your mom. It must be so uncomfortable. And apart from the discomfort and the shame that you're going through, there are a lot of other implications that can happen in terms of hygiene as well.
Hygiene is so important.
It's very unhygienic to do something like that. Although we will speak about hygiene later on.
Hygiene is a whole other topic that we will be discussing. So just to think of it, that 10% of girls in India think that periods is a disease, and up to 48% of girls in Iran, they were constantly getting their periods up to the age of 18. This is based on a UNESCO study, Meenal, that these girls were getting their periods and they were well into their teens or their late teens, and they were bleeding every month, and they were convinced that they had a disease and that it would just come up every month.
Well, the only thing that separates us from them really is just education. It's just as simple as that. And whether you get your education from school or whether you get it at home, it doesn't really matter where you get it from, but somebody really needs to tell you what's happening to your body and the changes that you're going through.
So I feel that in schools, at least now, they do teach this, but how effective is that teaching? Because I for one can say that I did not benefit from my school education on the subject. I do not remember attending a sex ed class. We had a biology chapter in our 10th grade, and it was the last chapter of our biology book, and on the last chapter was on human reproduction. And in parts where we had to get to these touchy topics, especially because in my school we had around 40 boys sitting in a class and 8 girls sitting in one corner of the class. So because these were touchy topics, the teacher would sometimes just say, one of you stand up and read. And any girl or boy who's just sitting in the back of the class daydreaming would not pay attention to it or would mug up to pass an exam. How much of an education is actually happening?
And which grade was this in? You said 10th grade?
10th grade, we were 15. And most of the girls already had their periods. And truthfully, I did not learn from my home or from my textbook or from my school that it was actually the lining of my uterus that is coming out of my body. I was curious, so I did go into a library, pick out a book, and I read up about this because I was curious, and that is the only reason why I educated myself. But how many girls do that?
Well, that's the thing. If you're going to be educated about something at the age of 15, like you said, and it's happening to you at the age of 11 or 12, it's kind of pointless. So, Ankita, even though you learned about this so late in school, what about at home? Did your mom ever tell you about it, or your dad ever? Well, I know I don't think your dad would really tell you. I think it's mainly the mom's job to do that. But I mean, what did your mom say to you?
So this is exactly what happened. I went to school one day, and my best friend, her mom was a doctor. So my best friend's mom gave her daughter the talk, and she explained everything to her in detail. And my best friend came up to me and she was shocked, and she said, "Did you know that this was going to start happening to us soon?" And I had no idea. I had none. I had no idea that this was a thing. I had no clue what period was all about. I had no clue what sex was. I didn't know how children were conceived. Up until that point, I used to watch Bollywood movies, and I would see there was this, I don't know if you remember this movie. It was Preeti Zinta's very first movie, I think, with Saif Ali Khan, and she gets pregnant, and it's about this teenage pregnancy and premarital sex or something.
What's the name of the movie?
I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was a Preeti Zinta movie, and it's really old. And Saif Ali Khan is this rich guy, and he gets her pregnant. I mean, they're dating, and she gets pregnant, and he immediately goes, "Oh God, I can't take responsibility for this," and the whole society treats her like shit, etc. And I saw that movie, and the lesson I took home from that movie, I was in the 4th grade maybe, was that you shouldn't have a boyfriend, because if you fall in love, then God is going to present you with a baby.
So you thought getting pregnant was a punishment?
I thought getting pregnant was a punishment. So it's a gift if you're already married. So only fall in love with someone after you're married to them. Otherwise, if you get a baby, then you're going to be alone with the baby. Anyway, I get the talk from my friend, and then I went back home and I gave my mom the talk. Okay, I sat my mom down and I explained everything to her. And my mother, believe it or not, she sat there listening to me like she was hearing all of this for the first time in her life. She did not. She just sat there nodding her head and going, "Really?" That was
she said that.
She was like, "Yeah." That was it. And I remember the day I got my period. I think every girl kind of sort of remembers the day and the date.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because it's our first initiation ceremony into womanhood or whatever. It's a big deal back then, although it's really uncomfortable. So mine was on this best friend that I told you about, whose mom was a doctor. It was on her birthday, and it was a Wednesday. And Wednesdays in our school are white and white uniform days.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so I wake up in the morning and I see this tiny spot of blood, and I tell my mom, "Okay, I think, Mom, the thing I told you about is happening to me." Mom, I
Yeah.
think I'm getting my period. And my mom was like, okay, it's your white and white uniform day. You are wearing a pad. You are not going to school without your pad. And she gave me a pad. She taught me how to wear it. I went to school. I came back and immediately my mom was like, you need to come fast. You need to go check in the bathroom. Like, did you get your
Yeah.
period? And I checked and I was expecting to see blood, but what I saw was something brown. And I was like, what is this shit? And my mom stood there and said, are you serious? Are you serious? Are you telling me that's shit? I said, Mom, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right. So we had this back and forth, and then, we established that I was getting my period, and that was it.
Well, I think just to clarify for some, because there may be some listeners who are listening now and they haven't got their period yet. So
Yeah.
if you get this, it's very normal to have this sort of discharge that comes out before your period, or
Yeah.
especially if it's the first time. It's very normal. And sometimes even you may be 2 or 3 years into your period now, and you will find that you might get some unsightly discharge.
Yeah.
And it's very normal. So, that's really interesting, because when I first got my period, Ankita, I didn't have my warning signs was just a lot of pain.
Oh,
It wasn't any physical sign that I could see.
right.
So I remember I was in the 7th grade and I was in class for a good week. I still remember it was a science class, and it was this class where I was feeling awfully uncomfortable. And the only thing that would relieve my pain was if I'd crunch my stomach forward and just take really deep breaths.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was really bad. And the thing was, Ankita, I was quite a healthy child. I didn't have any issues. I never got ill. So for me, that was a big shock. I didn't know what was happening. So my mom did try her best to help me out. She gave me hot water bottles and she gave me green tea and all these things. But deep down, I knew that she knew I was about to get my period.
Right.
Because these are the symptoms that you would get before, lower back pain, bloatedness, and just general discomfort in the abdominal area. And I think she was just very reluctant to at least give me a hint as to why I'm getting this pain. Maybe she was just too shy to say it, because it's not very normal to do this in my family, at least. But it was really interesting because a couple of weeks before that, my friend, she was in class and she was getting up to go to the bathroom, and she dropped a sanitary towel out of her bag. So all the boys and the girls in the class saw that happening. And so surprisingly, all the guys in the class knew what the sanitary towel was. I just had no clue what it was. So it was our lunch break and we were all outside and everyone was talking about this poor girl who dropped a sanitary towel.
Oh.
Everyone was like, yeah, she's got a period. And I just stood there and I just had no clue what was happening. So one of my friends came up to me and said, Meenal, do you know what's happened to her? And I just went, yeah, she's pregnant, right?
Oh my God. I did not expect that.
I thought she was pregnant because I had no clue. Because Ankita, the only thing that I associated with that part of the body with women was pregnancy. That's the
Okay.
only thing I knew at that age. I didn't know anything else.
Oh, at least you associated that with, that part of the body with pregnancy, right?
And not anything else, right?
No,
There are a lot of other things I could associate it with. But
no, the thing is, I have this. I'm sorry. I'm gonna let you continue with your story soon, but because you brought this up, I have this weird story to share with you. So when I was doing my MA in English literature, and I was sitting in class with people my age, some were slightly older than me, none were younger than me. So I'm sitting there, I'm talking to my friends, and someone mentions something that seems slightly ignorant to me. So I ask her, you do know that the baby comes out of another opening, right? She does.
Yeah.
The baby does not come out of your pee hole, for the lack of a better term. I don't want to make it too technical or medical. So it's not your pee hole that the baby comes out of. It's another opening. And she kind of suggested to me that she knew about the other opening, and she kind of suggested that the other opening was the asshole. And I said, no, I'm talking about the opening through which you get your period, and the baby comes out of that opening, not any other. And this person who was my age, 22 years old at the time, still our age, she's listening to me and she's hearing this for the first time, and she's shocked that there's an extra opening, and she's been getting her period for what, 10 years, and she never realized that there's an extra opening and that the baby comes in. So because I was curious, I asked her, so what did you think the baby came out of? Did you actually think that the baby came out of your pee hole? And she said, no, obviously the pee hole is too small for it. And
She thought that you would literally shit a baby out.
yeah, this was my reaction as well. I said, you literally think that you would poop a baby out? Is that what? Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing at this girl.
No.
Just for the record,
No.
I'm not laughing at her. I'm just laughing at how insane it is, how ridiculous our thoughts can be if we're not educated in the right way.
And it's not her fault. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, it's not her fault
The
at
thing
all. I
is,
don't blame her.
She got a proper education. She was taught the same things that I was taught in school, and I know this for a fact, right? And she has been getting her period for so long, but there's no conversation at home to explain this, or there's not enough reading about this happening. There's not enough discussion happening, and it had to take her 10 whole years in an MA classroom for a classmate like me to actually point it out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this other friend of mine who's been a biology student, and then she decided not to pursue biology anymore. So she's aware of this. She's good at biology. She knows that we have an extra opening, and she says, I know it technically, but I can never even comprehend it. I just cannot picture it. I don't feel it. When I get my period, I don't feel like it's coming out of some other place.
But the thing, okay, just to say, like anatomically,
Yeah.
I understand, because it's not like they're miles apart from each other.
Yeah,
they're kind of in the same area.
Yeah.
The same region. So,
Yeah.
But if you study the thing, this is the thing, Ankita, that our education system at home and in school in India, it doesn't lead us to having more curiosity.
Yeah.
So I know that in Europe, for example, the education system is slightly different. So if someone does tell you something or someone does teach you something, we don't just absorb it and just take it as it is. We will question it. And I think that in India, that's not so common to do. Like if someone tells you that, I mean, even if someone did tell you at the age of 8 that a woman gives birth through the asshole, they would believe it. They wouldn't ask, they wouldn't question it.
The questioning aspect of it does not really take place even in an Indian classroom, especially in a classroom like mine, where the teacher would feel uncomfortable with the subject and say, okay, one of you stand up and read. So there's not a lot of incentive in trying to understand what the topic is, because ultimately you can get through an exam, you can pass the test by mugging up. And unfortunately, a lot of kids do opt for that method of learning because they don't know any better. Because even as kids, sometimes in our homes, when we are taught the answer to a question, we're not always given an explanation, or we're not always given a pictorial representation of anything. We're just asked to mug up sometimes. And that's how the exams are also seen from a child's perspective at times. I'm not saying this is always the case. So yeah, that is where there's this gap in education. Why try to understand this concept when you can easily pass the test by learning?
Well, even when it did happen to me, when I realized, okay, something is wrong, I told my mom. I remember I said, Mom, look, I think that something is not right. And then she explained to me, she said, Mila, look, this is your period and you have to wear a sanitary towel. And she showed me how to use it. And I still remember I cried the whole night because I thought that I would have my period every single day of my life. I thought I'd have to wear the sanitary. So
oh my God.
Even when my mom explained it to me, there was still a lot of
there's a gap.
There's still that gap. So she wasn't fully open in telling me, look, okay, she's got her period, I might as well just tell her everything, It was like, I'll still be cold about it and she'll figure it out herself.
Yeah.
And when my mom told me that, okay, Mila, you have to wear the sanitary towel, she also told me, the only thing she told me was that you have to keep yourself clean, sort of thing. So change it every few hours. But that's the only thing she did, Ankita. I think once there was one point where I was in a lot of pain. It was when I first got my period. So these things happen that my mom just sat me down and she explained, she said, look, Meenal, it's going to happen to you every month and you're in this pain because, you're bleeding and your body's going through these changes. So that was the only time when she saw that I was really struggling and I just couldn't understand what was happening with my body. That's when she went out of her way. But imagine if she had told me this a couple of years ago, it would have been a lot easier for me I would have expected it. I would have known what to do.
Yeah, but I feel that there's still a time and place for sharing this information, because I remember when I was really young, and by really young, I mean 7 or 8 years old, too young to understand any of this. I went to this house, so I don't want to mention who or what. as always. So I went to this house, and there was this woman there who had kids pretty much my age, and she said, "Okay, Ankita, you're sitting there and you look pretty useless and bored. Let me pass on some information to you." And she brought this book, this encyclopedia, and it had like pictures of naked men and women, and it had everything
And
about.
you were how old?
7 or 8. I was really young, and she sat down and she explained, this is what is going to happen to your body when you're 13. This is what is called pubic hair. This is what is called breasts. Your breasts are going to develop. These are the changes you will see, and by the time you're this age, you will start bleeding. And she explained all of this, and I have no idea what her motivation behind that was.
Why would she do that to an 8-year-old?
Yeah, I have no clue. But the funny thing is, my brain completely erased that episode for some reason. I did not remember this for a long, long time, and it was only by the time I was like 20 that I remembered, oh wow, that time that my best friend told me about it was not the first time I heard this. This woman had actually explained the period, but I had no clue what she was talking about. All I remember is feeling really embarrassed looking at those photos. So my brain had completely blocked it out, and I think that is really weird how your brain does that sometimes, some memories just get...
I guess it was quite traumatizing for you to see that.
I guess that, which is probably why my brain erased it. I did not remember it. Even when I heard it for the second time, I did not remember it. So I feel that there is a time and place to tell kids about these things.
I mean, we in school, when I was, I can't remember what grade I was in specifically, but it was in a sex education class that we had, and our teacher played a video, and the video showed a naked man and a naked woman, and we learnt about the different body parts.
Really? A video?
Yeah.
So you watched porn?
Yeah, educational porn.
Oh my god, people are gonna love that.
But the thing was, Ankita, I think it's very important because mainly in Europe, at least, there's a big problem with teenage pregnancies, and there's a big problem with people not understanding their bodies and not understanding what actually happens.
Right.
So in this video that we watched, Ankita, we saw a naked man and a naked woman, and they showed us the different body parts, and they even showed us the birth of a child and how it actually happens.
Right.
It was quite weird because every day I came back from school, my mom would ask me, "So what did you do in school today?"
Oh.
And usually it's like, history, geography, mathematics. And that day I was just like, what do I say to my mom?
So I'm curious, did this happen in a class with boys and girls, or were the girls taken?
Well, I went to an all-girls school after grade 7. So it was, but I mean, the teacher who showed us the video was a man, so
right.
It didn't really matter. But I know that our counterparts, so the guys who are our age in a different school, they were learning how to use condoms on bananas and cucumbers. Yeah, they learn everything. Because
I don't know if you heard this recently. It was in the news that this young Vietnamese couple, they were really young and they were having sex for the first time, and they were too shy to go out and buy a condom, and they used a plastic cover instead, and it caused a lot of tearing. Yeah, and then they had to be taken to the hospital. And I think it's so important to teach children that this is what a condom is. This is how you put it on. Please put it on. For Christ's sake, do it.
Yeah, they use a plastic
cover because they were too shy to go out and get a condom.
Ouch.
And there was a lot of tearing apparently on both organs. Yeah, it was painful to read, and I just cringed when I read that article. I thought, oh my god, please educate these kids.
That's the thing, Ankita. In this episode and in our podcast, we are talking about girls and their periods and all of these things.
Yeah.
But we can't forget that there's also our opposite sex and the guys. They have to know how to use a condom. They have to know about, I'm sure they have to know about their own hygienic purposes.
Yeah.
And all that.
They have their hand in hand. It's not
course.
Just period on one hand and sex on the other hand. I feel that sex education and period and everything, they just go hand in hand, and everyone needs to listen to this conversation so that they know what's happening.
So I think it's really important for guys to know as well what a period is, because I think a lot of the times guys don't know what women go through. And if guys are more aware of this menstruation cycle, then it will help a lot in terms of their knowledge about the reproductive system. Because I know that a lot of people in India, whether it's in rural parts or in specific parts of India, guys are not aware of this.
Yeah.
And you start having these accidents and you start having these problems.
So fear, basic idea is that you fear something you don't understand fully. So the chances are the less girls and boys understand this concept and how the body works. And obviously, it's not clockwork. It's not like I got my period on the 28th of this month, so on the 26th of next month, I'm going to start bleeding. No, it's not clockwork. There are so many things that you need to understand about it. And the more you understand, the more you stop fearing it.
I was raised with two men in the house. I had a brother and I had my father, and they knew about it. They were well aware about it, but it was a sort of a secret code. So they never physically said, "Oh, Meenal, you're on your period, you're not feeling well." So when my dad knew I was on my period, it was because I was curled up in a ball in bed, or he would even go out and buy sanitary towels if we needed it. There was no question about it. But the only thing that my dad would do is that he would try and help. So if he knew that I was uncomfortable or I wasn't feeling well, he'd try to make me feel better.
Yeah,
and
makes sense.
I think we need that in our lives.
I remember how my dad would actually go out and buy ice cream sometimes because I was on my period. And there was no code actually in my house. I would openly tell him that, "Hey, Dad, I'm on my period and I feel like shit." Even now, when we're not in the same country, we talk on the phone and he's like, "How's your day been?" Or "How are you feeling?" And I say, "I'm on my period and I don't like it." So it's been really open. He would buy me my sanitary towels and he would directly come to my room with it and say, here you go. Is this enough for this month, or do you want me to get you more? So that conversation did happen, but the talk that is needed before you start.
Parents try to skip that part because it's the most uncomfortable part to go through.
Yeah, especially with a child. Yeah, especially with a child who's only trying to figure it out. It's scary what question the child might ask next. So I guess that's the reason why. But I think that's the most crucial talk. That's the most crucial conversation. But because that eases you into that situation and you're okay when it happens. Otherwise, you have so many questions. I remember I have this younger cousin, and she's the most adorable thing. She's the only younger cousin I have, and she's way younger than me. So we were watching TV, and someone said something like nuts, okay, and she elbowed me, and she giggled and said nuts. And I was like, "Oh, okay." She was 12 or 13, and I took her aside and I said, "Do you know what that means? Why did you giggle?" She said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "What does it mean?" And she said, "Boobs."
Oh my god! I did not expect that.
She said boobs because obviously her friends are probably saying nuts and giggling, and she tried to figure it out on her own, and she arrived at the conclusion that they're giggling because nuts means boobs. Or she had the basic concept right, I think, in the sense that it's something that people don't talk about. But when you're that age, kids, they listen to their friends talking. They see things on TV and they're confused. So I think it would really help if parents would just talk to them.
Yeah, and it would save them a lot of embarrassment. I mean, I thought my friend was pregnant.
You thought you were pregnant when you got...
I thought I was pregnant, so...
Oh, God.
So I think it's time now that we invite Shane to the podcast. And I think it's really important because Shane was raised with a brother. He didn't have any sisters. The only female presence he had was his mother. Yeah. And I don't know how much his mother spoke to him about this kind of thing. So...
Let's ask him.
Yeah, let's
find out. Let's find out. I know the answers.
So Shane, are you going to do your own intro now?
No.
So you come in and we can say, "Welcome to the show, Shane. Welcome to the show, Shane." Sure, Shane. Can you sit like that? Sit like that.
That's my intro music.
So Shane, welcome to the podcast. It's finally nice to see your face while we record and not just have you backstage doing all the editing. And how does it feel to be part of the more fun part of the podcast?
I'm usually sleeping while you guys are recording, so this is super frustrating right now.
Do you think that we're forcing you to talk about periods?
No, of course not. Of course not.
So Shane, you were raised at home with just a brother, and I don't know how your parents went about it. Did they ever give you the talk, and not just the talk about sex and reproduction, but did they ever tell you what a period was?
I don't think I ever got a talk.
At all?
At all. I think I found out everything that I know from,
the gods of the internet?
From the gods of the internet, yes. Yeah. Yes, from the gods of the internet.
Yeah.
So when you were 16, because we've just talked about women going through puberty, but men go through their own thing as well. I mean...
Yeah, so for men, it's not like flipping a switch and you suddenly get a period, right? For men, it's very gradual. It's something that goes under the radar. And it's not something you exactly notice. It's something you go, I'm getting hair in weird places. Well, that's great. I'm going to go back to watching my cartoons now. Yeah. you just don't care, and there's no immediate impact to how your life is because of it. And then there's that phase
Well,
where you're
I guess your changes are not as shocking to your system as it is for women, because everyone knows that a guy will grow a beard, everyone knows a guy will grow a mustache. But I think for us, for women, it's a bit more shocking because it feels our whole body is going. We have to adapt to a new lifestyle. I mean, every month we have to deal with this specific situation. So
yeah, another weird way of looking at it is that when a little kid grows a mustache, right? It's like, oh yeah, welcome to manhood, man. You have a mustache now. Yeah, you look cool, even though he doesn't. But here's the thing, right? Like a girl gets a period and suddenly it's taboo. You can't talk about it. It's not something that people are very happy to discuss or advertise, right? Although in some cultures they do celebrate it.
yes, they do.
Yeah, they
The first period they do celebrate, but then every period from that point on is the cursed period.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, it's slightly different for boys.
So at what age did you actually find out about the period? At what age did you realize that women actually bleed every month and that men don't? And this is something that is different, from that differentiates you from the rest of the women or the girls in your class. Some of them bleed.
Yeah, I think I found out about period, like the cursory knowledge, right? That women bleed every month, right? So I don't know when I learned that. I think I was really young because I can't even remember when I knew, at what point I knew. Another thing is, I don't think I knew much except for women bleed every month. I didn't even know.
Did you know that your mom was on a period, for example?
I think I might have noticed that later on, but as a young kid, I don't think I connected the dots when I found out that women bleed every month, that my mom was also a woman. I don't think I made that connection. I don't think I was a very smart kid. But yeah, the thing is, right? Oh, wait, I actually remember something. So when I was a really young kid, right? So this is watch cartoons all day young, right? Oh, wait, I still do that. Shit. Okay. But anyway, like I was a little kid and I saw a sandtree pad for the first time. Yeah. Right? It was my mom's hand. And I was like, oh, wait, what's that? Right? Yeah. And my mom was like, it absorbs your pee. And I'm like, are you telling me that I can sit on the sofa and when I want to pee, I don't have to get up. I don't have to walk all the way to the bathroom. I can just pee right there. Oh my God, this is the future. Give me one. Right? And I asked my mom for one and she's like, no. And for the life of me, I was so pissed off. I don't think I was ever that pissed off. I just wanted one so bad. I wanted to make so much noise. I was like, what? Why? You use it. Like, you're using it to pee and like not get up and go to the bathroom. Like, I want to do that too. I want to be lazy. I want to sit on the sofa and watch cartoons all day. Like, just give me one. Right? I'm making so much noise. I'm like, I'm about to have an argument. But then I think I got distracted because, little kid, there's SpongeBob playing on TV. You can't argue for long.
But Shane, didn't you ever think, okay, why is my mom literally wearing a nappy? That's what you thought, right?
Yeah. See, the problem is, as a kid, I thought, oh, wait, I don't actually have to take bathroom breaks. I can watch cartoons all day. I have reframed all of that as like a little kid would see it. Yeah. When I found out that I don't think I actually thought about it too much. So that's what happened there. Like, I don't think... So I must have registered the fact that I later found out about what periods are.
When did you find out about this?
I'm not entirely sure when I did. But when I did, I probably matched up with the fact that my parents were uncomfortable talking about this topic. So I'd never actually talked to them about it. Yeah. And like for me, it was fine, right? Because it doesn't directly affect my life. Like, I'm not a girl. I'm not going to get a period. I don't care. So I just move on with my life, right? Yeah. And at that point, it was fine because it did not affect me at all. And I didn't care enough to like even try and find out more about it. I think I got to college before I found out stuff like, oh, wait, periods are like the key part of the reproductive cycle. And like it's important because, as a species, we need to like make babies and like survive, that sort of thing. Like until college, I don't think I knew like enough things about periods. Like I think I probably knew as much as women bleed every month.
But do you think it would have helped you to learn about all this at an earlier age?
I think we did have sex education at some level in school. It's just that I never So here's the problem with school, right? If you're not made to understand the importance of what you're being taught, you sort of just let it skip over your head. You tend to forget. So if I was never told why it was important that people like girls go through period, men like boys go through puberty and they have these changes, and not just periods, right? Like things like safe sex. So this is why you should use a condom. This is why you should use a lubricant. Like none of those things. Maybe they were told to us, but I don't remember any of it because I don't think at that point in time they exactly told us why it was important to know these things for your future. So all that stuff got skipped over, and ideally we were taught the stuff, right? Like we have to be both taught and we have to be told why it's important as well. And that's something that's missing from our education right now.
So do you think that as a grown man, do you think it's important to educate young boys, from the base level? What is a period? Why do women get it? How important that one aspect is to the evolution of our species itself?
So here's the thing, right? Like the reason it's not currently being taught is because people are uncomfortable with the topic.
Yeah.
And the reason they are uncomfortable with the topic is because they have very little knowledge of it. So little knowledge leads to fear. Like the less you know of something, the more fear you have of that thing. Like you don't understand it, therefore you just don't want to think about it. You don't want to talk about it. That's where all the stuff comes.
I think apart from all of that, Shane, we feel in our culture years and years back, we've always felt that to talk about these things, to talk about the reproductive system, to talk about a man and a woman having sexual intercourse, it seems to be quite a shameful topic to talk about openly, at least.
Yeah, so I don't know how that happened, because at some point, right, there's some stupid rules that we currently have, like a woman on her period can't go into the kitchen, she can't go into the river, which I'm guessing came from a point where if you were on your period and you were using cloth to like absorb it and you walk into a river, it's obviously going to get mixed up, and that's not good. Yeah. That's not good for both the women, and you're basically like leaking period blood onto the river, right? That's not great. So I'm guessing that's where it stems from. But now it's basically like, oh no, it's a religious thing, or it's like a cultural thing. You're not allowed to go to the beach.
Everyone mixes culture and religion up all the time. So they will use something that's cultural, and they will say that, well, it's against our religion to do these things.
So it's become more cultural and religious now, whereas earlier it was more logical. It was like, oh yeah,
it's practical.
Yeah, it was practical. Like, don't do this stupid thing because that's stupid. Now it's more like, oh yeah, don't do this because
the gods will be angry.
Yeah, the gods will be angry, or something similar, right?
But Shane, why do you think specifically it's important to educate young boys about this, and not just about sex education, but about periods as well?
So yeah, it boils down to what I said earlier, right? It's that the more you know of it, the more accepting you will be of it, because you know very little. Oh, it's like, oh no, she's on her period, I'm not going to touch her. Like, what the shit? Like, if you knew what exactly it was, if you knew what the importance of women having periods are, you wouldn't actually be a complete dick about it. You would actually, I could have said that in better terms. I could have used better words there, but like, boils down to that, right? Like, people are dicks about things they don't understand. Well, people are dicks about things that they don't. It's really
easy to jump to conclusions if you don't know about anything. And I think that's very common in our society when guys say, oh, she's on a period. We're considered dirty to some guys.
Yeah.
How do you think that men or boys can be more respectful of women on their periods? Because I recently read that 1 in 7 women is on her period, which means that if you're in a class full of 20 girls, chances are 3 of them are on their period. So how do you think that, since you're encountering all of these women on a daily basis, how can you be more respectful towards a woman or a girl who's on her period? So
I'm going to tell you a story from when I was in uni in Southampton. So I was hanging out with at a friend's place. He had this massive house, right? I think he was rich, so he could afford to rent out a massive place. For the 3 years at uni. A lot of my friends used to hang out there because it was a massive place and we just could chill, and we used to play Mario Kart all the time. So I was under the assumption that this guy was like single. So I walk up to his place and I walk into his bathroom to use it, and I find this goodie bag, like massive array of things just sitting there, and it was like sanitary napkins, it's products for feminine hygiene and all that stuff just sitting there, and like really expensive hand wash and face wash. And I'm like, I get outside and I ask him, hey, I thought you were single, man. And he was like, yeah, I'm single. But, a lot of guys and girls like walk through here, so I thought, might as well have a goodie bag here so that in case case they need it, they don't actually have to like get out of the house and go to the supermarket to buy
Wow.
it. It's like a
That is
10-minute
so
walk. Because I wouldn't think to do this in my house.
So just because he had friends, female friends visiting, he kept a goodie bag full of pads, tampons, and
Yeah.
female hygiene products just so that they wouldn't have to go to the supermarket in case there's an emergency. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, so it's things like that. So the thing is, right, I would not have thought of that.
Yeah.
I would have never done it until I saw that, right? I would have never thought of
Yeah.
doing that because it's not something that really crosses your mind. But once I saw him do that, I was like, oh my God, like everybody should do this. Like this is basic courtesy, right? You should have, it's like keeping towels for extra guests that come to your house.
Yeah.
Like you should have this, but
Or a hand wash in your powder room.
yeah, like it's not something you would really think about, but it's something that's really
That's
important.
amazing. I think
Yeah, I'm really surprised because even though I'm not in India, I've never seen that happen, and it just shows, that he's very open to everything, and this guy actually, to some extent, sympathizes that okay, a girl might have this issue because, to be honest, our periods can just come whenever. They're just big surprises. We just don't know when they're gonna come.
like I said, it's not clockwork. It's not like you can predict exactly the date and time. It's your body. It doesn't work that way. It can happen anywhere at any time.
So thank you, Shane, for joining us. And I'm very sure that your story and your input can actually help a lot of people who are listening to us right now.
I'm glad we could bring in a male perspective to this
Oh, yeah,
topic that is
definitely.
usually taboo. So thank you for joining us, actually.
And it was a pleasure.
So there you have it. The biggest issue is that people don't talk about periods enough. Girls are made to hide the fact that they're menstruating from their fathers and brothers, from their friends and their colleagues. Everyone gets uncomfortable around this topic. Sanitary pads are carried around secretly. When girls are going to their loo to change a pad, they have to put it in some pocket of their dress so that none of the boys see it, or they have to carry their handbags with them. And most girls don't like carrying their handbags with them because then it becomes obvious that they're taking something to the loo, and that something could be a sanitary napkin. And if you know what I'm talking about, most Indian girls would actually relate to this. If you go to a medical store in India and ask for a sanitary napkin, chances are that they will wrap it in a newspaper first and then put it in an opaque cover to give it to you so that nobody sees what you just purchased from the store. And I think this is the kind of stuff that we need to talk about, and this is the kind of stuff that needs to stop in our society.
Well, while we want our girls to be aware about periods, we also want our boys to feel comfortable addressing the same with their counterparts, male or female. We want boys to also feel the responsibility to carry a spare sanitary pad or tampon with them because remember, 1 in every 7 women is on her period. And it's not clockwork. So you can have a lady in your home and she might just end up on a period. So you can never predict the timing or place of your next period accurately. So it helps to be prepared at all times. And guess what? You might be of great help to someone if you carry a pad with you at all times. And I just want to point out that guys always carry condoms in their wallets. I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
So you can carry, well...
You can't carry a pad in your wallet.
You can't carry a pad in your wallet, but even if you keep one in your house, it's
or
courtesy.
in your car or in your house, in your bathroom, so that if you have a female visitor, a female friend coming over, it's a courtesy. It's like Shane said earlier, it's like keeping towels for your guests.
And this is a 3-part series. So in this first part, we've tried our best to address the issue of awareness and how most of us were never told what to expect during a period or even what a period really is. So this trend in India has to stop, and it can only really start with us. At least from the age of 10, it should be normal for children, whether you're a boy or a girl, to be exposed to a conversation about periods or sex education.
I feel that a mom should actually feel free enough to tell her 12, 13, 14-year-old son that, okay, this is a sanitary pad, I'm on my period. If it's not just mothers talking to their daughters and telling them about it, it's mothers normalizing the concept of being on your period.
It's all about everybody accepting what is happening, because you want everybody to be comfortable with their own bodies. You want everyone to be comfortable with what's happening.
So this week we discussed the idea of awareness about periods, and we shared our personal stories. We even got Shane to give us a male perspective into this topic. So next week we come to you with the talk. If you feel that there's a kid out there who needs to be told what's going on with his or her body, just make them listen to our next week's episode, because we are going to give the talk. It's not just going to be period, it's also going to be everything a kid needs to know before, changes start happening to his or her body. We also encourage adults to listen to it, because chances are your knowledge of the period and human reproduction in general is limited to a high school textbook level. So there's a lot you might learn from our next week's episode.
And finally, in the third and final part of this series, we will cover one of the most important things to consider once you've amassed all this knowledge, and that's hygiene. And it's going to be all about the importance of hygiene and also what products to use and how to take care of your body. And as a medical student, I do really feel that hygiene is probably one of the most important things that we need to discuss in this series. And I hope all of you will tune in to stay in till the end.
And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback on not only this episode, but also our previous episodes. So do leave us a comment on social media at the Desi Outsiders. If you have any stories about the lack of awareness on periods or anything related to periods, then do send them in to mail@desioutsiders.com. If you like listening to us, then please do subscribe to us on YouTube, on YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud. We would love it if you could give us great reviews. 5-star reviews. Please give us 5-star reviews.
And thank you once again for tuning in every Thursday. We couldn't be more grateful for the support you've shown. Until next week, I'm Meenal.
And I'm Ankita.
And we are the Desi Outsiders.